presentation, and let me just segue into the sort of panel and general Q&A. So just to maybe give everyone a summary of what happened throughout this summer school. This is going to be a presentation which I'm just going to make sure that everyone can see the screen and hear me loud and clear. Akhandadi, do you want to give me a hands up?
Yes, it's like we can hear you. We see your slides. Thanks.
Okay, fantastic. So this is going to be some bit of presentation as well as sort of a panel, and we'll be taking general Q&A. So please, if there are any questions from this entire summer school that you had, any burning questions, what is the BIHS, what are the resources involved, the opportunities getting involved, this is what this session is about. If you have any question on any of these topics that were covered as part of this summer school, now is the time to ask. Okay, so hit that Q&A button and post your question right away. But the presenters and panelists for this session, which is going to last about 45 minutes, are Bob Cohen, Akhandadi Das, H.D. Goswami, and myself, Kunal Mule. All right, so it has been a very eventful summer school for me, and I would like to thank all the participants to begin with that were part of this wonderful series marking the 50th anniversary of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. Let me get started right away with affiliates and collaborators. We would, of course, like to thank all of these members and collaborators. This was organized by the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies, which is basically a science and philosophy institution. We want to make sure that we bring some unique insights into our understanding of life, understanding of ourselves as conscious beings, and we want to make sure that we are heard loud and clear, and we want to reach out to the entire world. There is the Institute of Science and Spirituality, who is an affiliate, and we heard from Dr. Jyoti Ranjan Buria earlier today that they are involved in research, education, and outreach. Prabhupada Research Institute for Integrative Medicine is another affiliate, and you heard from Dr. Venugopal Demerla earlier in the summer school that how they are contributing to some interesting understanding of Mahamantra through research, how it affects the mind, how it affects consciousness, and so on. There's a science and philosophy initiative headed by Akhandadi Das, which is based in the UK. And that is another science and philosophy endeavor to understand consciousness, and basically through research and outreach, we have to reach the masses and ourselves understand this whole concept of who we are and what are our destinations. So Bhaktivedanta Hospital and Research Institute is a collaborator. You heard from Dr. Komal Dalal earlier. I'll be getting a little bit into that in my next slide. There is also the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies collaborates with the International Consciousness Research Laboratories, also known as Pear Research, Princeton Pear Research in its olden days, which are heavily into research on the mind and how it can affect matter. Another collaborator is the Institute of Technology at Mundi, and also the Institute for Mind, Intelligence, and Consciousness Studies, which I am grateful to be heading, actually. So I collaborate very closely with the BIHS folks here. Okay, so the BIHS, again, gets together every year, every couple of years with these grand conferences. And if you haven't had a chance to be a part of them, please, I would request you to be a part of this wonderful, wonderful gathering, which is generally, I mean, some of the examples you can see here. In 2019, there was this Consciousness and Science Conference, which I was a part of, Mind-Brain Interface Conference, which in fact I was leading in 2021. We got together as scientists and philosophers across the world international and rigorous are basically two keywords that define these conferences. And there was the Cosmology Conference in 2023, and you can see the wide variety of experts that are involved in these kinds of conferences. Okay, so there was also the IMIX BIHS IIT Mandi conference held in December 2023, where the overarching goal was leveraging Eastern and current scientific knowledge systems to develop a comprehensive understanding of mind, intelligence, consciousness, matter, and reality. And you can see various academics from science, philosophy, ranging from medical doctors. You can also see very renowned folks like Stuart Hameroff involved in some of these conferences. So the themes that we generally cover are consciousness, spiritual world, God, even subtle body, subtle matter, metaphysics of physical world, mind-body interface. And an important part, which I will come towards the end actually, is education and outreach. Okay, so another flavor of conferences, of course, there was a BIHS participation in a recent, one of the world's renowned conferences, in fact, on consciousness, which is the Science of Consciousness, held at the University of Arizona. There was a special session where the BIHS contributed, top-down consciousness and real-world applications. There were a few speakers involved here that you can see. Again, this is just a flavor of what kind of things are being carried out, cutting-edge research, as well as all these education and outreach events that are held at the BIHS. So just getting into the BI network a little bit, there is a whole network of scientists and engineers involved with physics, astronomy, biology. I don't need to name all the different disciplines, computer science and artificial intelligence. So if you fall under one of these categories trained as an academic, please do get in touch with the BIHS. The folks, we will be very happy to really engage with you, and maybe we can work together as collaborators. Philosophers and theologians, of course, medical doctors, historians and archaeologists, and also educators, intellectuals, all of them contributing in many different ways. So there is, don't feel left behind. Actually connect with the network as soon as possible. And the whole idea is we work together as a group in making really ambitious and really good science, philosophy, medicine, all transforming all these fields with the rich Eastern knowledge there is, right, that we have access to. Okay, some bit of research that has come about and has been showcased at this summer school. I want to mention at the very beginning, there was a very wonderful talk given by Lakshmidhar Behra, who is the director of IIT Mandi, showcasing his Indian Knowledge Systems and Mental Health Applications division that has been newly formulated. The theme there is primarily mind, brain, and consciousness. There is a whole wide variety of research topics involved here on consciousness studies, meditation, yoga, performing arts, Ayurveda, a whole lot of opportunity, interdisciplinary, scientific, philosophical approach that you can get plugged into. There was another very nice talk from the Bhaktivedanta Hospital folks on Mahamantra research, spiritual care. We also had Dr. Venugopal Damarla and Uma Pallavi presenting on spiritual intelligence and Mahamantra research. Again, we see an increasing number of people around the world who are getting interested into Mahamantra meditation research. So if you're trained in any of the involved research activities or research kind of tools, then please do get connected again with all of these different avenues. Of course, a very important aspect of the Science and Philosophy Initiative is, of course, looking deeper into the Shastras, looking deeper into philosophy itself, philosophy of knowledge. Very wonderful talk given by Dr. Howard Resnick, H.D. Goswami here, of course, is how can we really combine philosophy and science together to come up with a very holistic understanding of our existence, right, of the world around us, and so on. Vedic archaeology and history are not left behind. They are very much part of the BIHS. We had very good talks from Michael Primo and Rita Yene here. The TOBP, Chandelier Model, and Science Museum that are coming up in this world's biggest temple in Mayapur were covered earlier today. Astronomy and Vedic cosmology are also important aspects of research that is going on at the BIHS. And last but not the least, natural and artificial intelligence and model of the mind that I want to highlight. Very good talks. Actually, there is one more that I wanted to highlight. Of course, this is a very, very important topic that the BIHS is a collaborator on. And this is reincarnation and extraordinary abilities research. There are various components to this research. Consolidating Eastern perspectives on reincarnation, this really requires deeper investigations and focused understanding of the Eastern philosophies to try and come up with really unique understanding of the subtle body. What is there beyond the physical? How is that able to hold information? And how does that translate into its connections with the physical, with biology, and so on? And ultimately, how is it connected with the conscious being, ourselves as the Jiva and Atma? There is another neuroscience, cognitive science component to this. There is a biology component. There is a physiology and psychology component. There's a medical component through past life regression, and of course, theory building. All of these different variety of areas that, of course, all of our participants can contribute to, and of course, get engaged in. Education, I wanted to cover this. I have just one slide, but I'm not going to do justice at all by just having one slide here. There's a lot going on. I just want to highlight a few things going on at IIT Mandi. A couple of these courses that are being taken actually by hundreds of students as compulsory courses at IIT Mandi, bachelors of engineering and other disciplines are taking Indian knowledge systems and consciousness studies, cognitive psychology, and the Indian thought system, Bhagavad Gita, Introduction to Consciousness and Holistic Well-Being. This is a course that in fact I myself have developed, and Reincarnation. This is a course that is coming soon. So all these wonderful courses being defined at real universities, really cutting edge work here. There are other aspects I won't get into in detail, but applications of subtle body like the phantom limb problem, medical doctors, and many others engaged in various disciplines can get involved with this kind of work here. Research as well as education, remote viewing. This falls under the category of extraordinary perceptual abilities. There's also meditation and well-being, a lot to get involved with. I don't want to leave behind outreach at universities, various universities across the US that the BIHS is reaching out to. There is also UK SPI, Science and Philosophy Initiative, that are connected with leading universities up there in UK as well as Europe, and the ISS contributing heavily to reaching out to these Indian universities and so on. So highlighting just a few outreach avenues. So if any of you in the participants, or if you are friends with anyone, acquainted with anyone who is involved with research and is interested in being part of this global endeavor, then please do reach out. Resources, how can you get plugged in to the various resources? Firstly, starting with books. We covered in the summer school many of these resources, and starting from Vedic cosmography, does Shabda make Pratyaksha invalid? Again, Vedic sort of this astronomy and so on, Krishna and the Quark. Some of these books we've highlighted in the earlier talks. There's also a Science and Philosophy Initiative that is preparing some books on reframing reality and the Atma paradigm, specifically related to how philosophy and science can contribute to the global discussion on what is consciousness, who are we, and so on. I want to highlight, this is sort of a kind of a selfish plug here. From the IMIC side, this is the Institute of Mind, Intelligence, and Consciousness Studies. We have two books upcoming, The Concepts of Subtle Body and Consciousness in Eastern Knowledge, and one that we've already is out there is Mind-Brain Interface. This has various interesting topics that talks about how we can really understand the unique role of the mind, which may be independent of the brain, workings of the brain, right? There are several handouts that are already being prepared as part of outreach endeavors. Globally speaking, of course, the left one is prepared by the Science and Philosophy Initiative. And the right, you can see a couple of different handouts. And in fact, one of them is a publication in a reputable journal that is prepared by the Prabhupada Research Institute for Integrative Medicine. There are presentations and lectures. So please be acquainted with all of these if you're, again, an intellectual that is waiting to connect with these kinds of resources, or outreach person who is looking for resources to disseminate, right? So this is just the Atma paradigm that I'd like to highlight, which is a dedicated YouTube channel headed by Akhandadit Das. And there are Richard Thompson archives, which contains various videos by Richard Thompson, who was one of the initial members of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. There are also these various other resources like scientific papers and BTG essays and so on. So please do connect. There are various more resources that are on the way, which we will basically, all the participants and everyone involved here connected with the BIHS, we will disseminate those as soon as possible. So do reach out to us if you're looking for any specific kinds of resources, and relevant experts at the BIHS will connect you to the right kind of resources. There's also, especially for students and maybe generally the intellectuals that are interested or experts with computer coding and involved with developing models of sorts. There are projects and hackathons that have been organized in the past and some that have been planned. In this slide, we're just showing a few examples that actually students came up with on developing models of the mind based on Eastern understanding as well as the scientific understanding of the mind, psychological understanding of the mind, and so on. So various opportunities. There's no dearth of how you can get involved with all of these. Okay, so that is all that I had. I'm going to pass on the baton to Bob Cohen. And if you want to speak, just let me know which slide should be presented. Okay. Okay, so just a minute. A bit of technical interlude here because we need to get from Tirthadas on the panelist. So take just a few seconds. Okay. We have Oppo here. And yes, please go for it.
Okay, first I want to thank you, my friend Kunal, for organizing this first attempt at our summer school. As in any endeavor, there'll be some shortcomings, which ultimately become the responsibility of the BI. So we want to hear your feedback. What worked for you, what didn't work, what was boring, what was interesting, what you'd like more of. Please write us and I'll explain to you how to do that in a moment. And I'll speak briefly. This is our headquarters in Gainesville, donated, I'm pleased to say, by Hridayanand Raj's Family Trust. It used to be the home for the president of the University of Florida. And when he retired, he was recruited by Nehru to go to India and get the educational system going. IIT, all these institutions needed to be developed or revived. And of course, Nehru wanted to do it at that point without the British. So next slide, please. Back one. You saw some of this before. At the Bhaktivedanta Institute for Higher Studies, we have institutes we're affiliated with. Kunal had mentioned the International Conscious Research Lab. For those of you who are familiar with the PAIR project, that's a successor organization when they moved off campus from Princeton. Fascinating group that for 30 years studied the interaction of mind and machines. I'm pleased to say I'm also on the board of directors of the organization, and we just finished a joint conference with them. And we work with all these other organizations. We've attended or produced about 16 conferences, 47 associates. It's an old number. Every week, 3-4 people write me and say, what can I do to be involved in the BI? I urge you to do the same. Next slide, please. You've seen, of course, we're doing the summer school now. There's how to contact me, or you can write directly to the BI. Either way works. You have our website. Our website is undergoing a revision now, which I'd like to let you know. I also want to give a quote from Prabhupada. Prabhupada was very concerned beginning in the mid-70s that the scientific basis of Krishna consciousness be presented. And he felt that there was huge progress in the area of science. At his time, it was, of course, post-Sputnik, and astronauts and all kinds of, and computers were becoming of age. We've progressed so much since then. And Prabhupada's point was, we do not condemn any scientific advancement. I want to say that again. We do not condemn scientific advancement. Our problem is the lack of philosophical approach. I'll give you an example. The idea that life comes from matter has many philosophical problems associated with it. Yet it's common thought that life just comes from matter. So Prabhupada's first conference in '77, which 5 of us spoke at, was Life Comes from Life. That was the name of it. So Prabhupada said, and I'll quote, we are not animals that we should condemn scientific knowledge, but we should know the origin, not that life is coming from chemicals. So that is a key point. A second area, of course, we work in is cosmology, which takes us to cosmogenesis, which takes us to the same issue again. How does it all begin? Which comes first, consciousness or matter? Fortunately, in the last 10 years, there's been a sea change in the intellectual world. One prominent scholar, I mentioned this in my talk at the beginning, one prominent theologian from Notre Dame, Hart, said, I used to, as an anti-physicalist, as someone who accepts that consciousness doesn't come from matter, I was such an outlier. I was on the edge of society, on the edge of the intellectual community. Now I'm becoming in the center. And then he jokingly says, what went wrong? Well, this is the opportunity at the BI. So any one of you who are listening would like to work with us. We need writers, we need philosophers, Sanskritists, and of course, scientists. Send a letter to those addresses. I'll personally connect you with the right department of the BI, and you can see how you can engage. If you can't directly work with us, you can work indirectly. Krishna talks in the 12th canto. If you can't surrender everything to me, give the fruits of your work. We obviously accept donations. As the director, if I didn't say that, I would be negligent of my duties. And but we really would like your help. So I'm going to turn this back to Kunal Nikandadi, I believe next, our Dean of Academics, and the one who pushes us to be more philosophical all the time. I think next is Hridayananda Goswami. Am I right on that, Kunal?
I will request both H.D. Goswami and Akandadi to actually maybe switch on their videos. And Akandadi does have one slide to present, so maybe you
Let him go then, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, let Akundity goes.
All right.
I'll present this slide, which I hope will, lead into discussion and comments by Maharaj. Okay, I hope this is now clear. This is a little matrix.
Yeah, you can go into presenter mode if possible.
Oh, yes, I can do that. Takes a moment to think about it. This is a matrix that we established a few years ago in order to clarify the extent of the mission that is in front of the Bhaktivedanta Institute, and it's not small. We have identified 4 publics. One is the BI itself. When I say public, these are our audiences. We need to work with devotee scientists, help them understand each other's work, understand the metaphysics of the Bhagavatam, help them understand how their work in their scientific field applies and how it can really contribute to the overall picture. And then there's ISKCON, the more general devotees who may not be scientifically trained, but who have an interest in this and who read Prabhupada's books and have questions and need to be helped in ways to think about those questions and find answers which really mean something to them. And in that way, then they can also perhaps be involved in the outreach. They can advocate for this type of vision of reality based on consciousness. And then we have the general public. We must reach them, although they are heavily indoctrinated. And if you ask them where life comes from or where the universe comes from, they're going to say, yep, there's matter and there's evolution and then there's Big Bang. They will repeat that because that is what they have been told is the intellectual position. And no one wants to be seen as simple or naive or gullible. And at the same time, there's a turning away from organized religion, but not necessarily spirituality. Religion seems to be institutionalized to the point, and we heard this from Bhaktivedanta Swami earlier in the series, that institutional religion seems to cater for, if you like, the expectations that the religion is going to do something for me, rather than what is my spiritual path, what is the process, the discipline that I must undertake in order to achieve a higher state of awareness of myself and of God. And so the public is ripe for this. Although they may cite the standard scientific arguments, in their hearts, they are not satisfied. And I would suggest that a vast majority of them believe that there must be something more. They may not want to call that something more God, but there's something more than birth to death, and that being it. So huge opportunity for us. And of course, there's the academic world. This is where all these theories that are lack in philosophy when they interpret scientific evidence and postulate all sorts of ideas that consciousness can come from the brain, even though that's not understood, that life comes from it, not understood, evolution of species, not understood. And the poor academics, you see, they take it on faith that the neuroscientists have got consciousness sorted out. And then someone else thinks, well, and the biologists, they've got life sorted out, haven't they? And then the biologists and neuroscientists think the physicists and cosmologists have got the universe and physics worked out, and everything is a matter. So no one realizes that actually everyone else's ideas are wanting. So there is scope to go in and interact in ways that bring a greater philosophical approach to the academic world. In a few of the big conferences I've been going to recently, people come up and they ask, so what's your thing? What are you into? And I explain Science and Philosophy Initiative. Our idea is that we want to make scientists more philosophically astute, and we want to make philosophers more scientifically literate. And they go, oh, that's a good idea. So there is an opening. So those are our 4 publics. And of course, we have looked at the horizontal bands dealing with the key epistemological approaches of science, of philosophy, and of theology and spirituality. And from the combination of these 3 epistemologies with each of these audiences, we have identified how we hope to help them. So with the BI in science, we want to help them enable and engage devotee scholars in the mission of BI and in interacting with others, and to be current with the latest scientific ideas, and not to promote pseudoscience or misunderstandings. Philosophy, we need to develop the philosophy of science for the BI, and we need them to appreciate and reveal the deep metaphysics that is embedded in our Shastra, specifically Srimad Bhagavatam. And theologically and spiritually, we want to help devotee scientists have a Siddhantic foundation with hermeneutics as the basis for discussion, and to reconcile their work in the scientific field and devotional life. There is no reason why there should be a conflict. But many devotees actually work in that situation where they seem conflicted. I'm a scientist at work, and all day I'm doing this, that, and the other. But when I go home, I can do puja and be a devotee. No, we need that more integrated. With ISKCON, in science, we want to inspire and excite devotees that Krishna consciousness can be seen there in scientific evidence. We want to dignify and appreciate the scientific method, not denigrate it, and look at its role, but also its limits. We, in philosophy, want to increase awareness of philosophy of science. That is one of the key aspects. I think Maharaj may speak on that in a few minutes. Epistemology and the contribution of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In theology, obviously, we want to strengthen faith in the Shruti Pramana. There is amazing material in the Bhagavatam. Often, devotees skim over it because it doesn't quite work for them, and they're not sure how to deal with it. But there's amazing stuff, and we want to show that we are true to Krishna conscious theology, and in this one we need to discuss and educate ourselves and our devotees in terms of hermeneutics, how we read Prabhupada's books, how we understand aspects of reality that is beyond our senses. For the public, in science, we want to promote consciousness as a legitimate and important topic, because that's the key. Consciousness is the Achilles heel of physical science. It's what's caused a new look at not just neuroscience, but biology and physics. So we want to promote the study of consciousness and help people understand that's where they start from, and that the BI has valid messages in science. And we're not just some religious fanatics, but we have valid messages. And we want to inspire people to find, to appreciate, and to explore the perspectives of the Srimad Bhagavatam as it deals with our existence and broader reality. And in theology, we want to inspire the public to explore the Gaudiya Vaishnava tools of a spiritual science. So if all of this works, then are there ways to put this into practice as a science of the subjective on my own consciousness? And look at the methodology and to discover the Krishna conscious vision of personalism that exists behind the mysteries of nature and our own existence. And for academia, we want to demonstrate to academics we are legitimate scientists. Again, we're not just fanatics trying to sell our brand. We're legitimate science. We want to look at what are the facts and how to understand those facts. And our methodology is valid, and we want to enter the academic discourse. We want to use philosophy with the academic world to expand upon the themes of science. It has its limitations. It needs the backing of science. So we want to encourage scientists to think more philosophically. And science has its limits. And metaphysics that are open to theism are needed to understand the deeper mysteries and greater context of reality. That it's wrong to say there can be no God in science. If this metaphysical framework allows for there to be a source of reality that is conscious, then that has to be considered as a valid proposition. So these are the different approaches from our matrix. I think it was really interesting to hear from Russia, and therefore there are 4 steps or stages that they're working through in order to develop a framework that can then be taken and adopted by the academic world. And I think that's a very nice addition to how we in the BI were seeing it. So I'm going to stop my share, pass it back to Kumud Van Brajesh.
HD Goswami, we would like to hear from you, please.
Okay, I'll think about it. Let's see. Here we go. So thank you very much. Thank you. Kumud Van actually deserves a lot of credit because, as Brahmatirtha said, this was our first attempt, or Kumud Van might have said that. But actually, this is probably the greatest gathering of devotee scholars ever. So obviously there's room for improvement, but it was a tremendous accomplishment, and it was put together in a relatively short time. I'd like to sort of follow up on some of the things that were already said. For one thing, in terms of our audience, I think we should probably retire the phrase "the mass of people." Because if you look at Lord Chaitanya's own outreach, for the mass of people, he did kirtan, Harinam Kirtan. And then for educated people, he did philosophy and so on. So, of course, our target audience is not merely academic scientists and philosophers, because for 2 reasons. Number one, often they're the last ones to figure out what's really going on. And number 2, because many of them are predisposed towards sort of foolish materialism. So I think there's not only academic specialists and then the mass of people. There are educated people. They may be dentists, they may be lawyers, they may be many things, but they are the people that read. So I'd like to say the reading public rather than the mass of people that generally don't read. Another point is that Akhandeti was pointing out that we have to help the people in general to understand. In America, there was recently, I think it was a Gallup poll or some poll by a well-known polling service that said that actually over 80%, maybe 81% of people in America believe in God. And so people that believe in God do not believe that evolution takes place by itself. So let's say, atheistic evolutionary theory certainly has a lot of influence among academics, but then again, how much influence do academics have? So apparently not enough to get a significant number of people in the United States to believe in unaided, unguided, materialistic evolution. So the people in general already accept our basic points, that there is a God. And probably most of them would argue, yeah, there's some kind of soul that continues. So, and as we know, scholarship in general is going in that direction. There was a long-term study by Harvard, many other top universities, where they were exploring near-death experiences, and people who, let's say, clinically died. Maybe they're on the operating table and clinically, technically they die, but they come back and they report things they saw, such as conversations between doctors and nurses and so on. They report things that took place when that patient was clinically dead. So how they heard it, how they knew about it, and sometimes the information which would require sort of an aerial view, which would require people to be above. There's all kinds of things like that. And the interesting point here is that Harvard and all these other universities, they studied for, a long, long time because they were determined to find a material explanation. They wanted to make sure that this phenomena did not threaten the sort of the foolish academic consensus of materialism. And they couldn't find one. And they finally admitted that we can't find any material explanation for this. So however this happened, it cannot be explained materially according to our present material knowledge. So there's a lot going on today. Also, I think we have to ask the question, if our goal is to make the world Krishna conscious, or at least to establish Krishna consciousness as taught by Prabhupada as a leading light in the world, as something which influences and guides very significant numbers of people, then we have to ask a socio-historical question. How do changes like that take place in time, in history? And is there some way we can take advantage of that knowledge of history so that we can become influential? And the answer is right there in Lord Chaitanya's own pastimes. Lord Chaitanya appeared as a great scholar. His leading devotees were great scholars, such as the six Goswamis and other devotees, Sarvabhauma and Prakashanand and so on, who Lord Chaitanya converted and who were already great scholars. So Prabhupada always used to say that the Varna system, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, is natural, and those four classes are there everywhere, but they're just not organized properly. So, and Prabhupada also said all the time that his movement is meant to put a head on the headless society. That head is the Brahmin class. So therefore, you have to ask the question, as a historian, as a sociologist, how is it that within history, groups of people become accepted as the legitimate teachers of society? And there are various answers. For example, in Lord Chaitanya's time, you had to know certain curricula. You had to know grammar, Sanskrit grammar. You had to know logic, Nyaya, and Shastra, and so on. Nowadays, at least in the Western countries, there are different criteria. The basic principle is the same. You have to know things. You have to be learned. So Lord Chaitanya himself was learned. His leading preachers were learned. Practically all of the, or a strong majority of Lord Chaitanya's intimate associates wrote books. They were authors. They were scholars. So not that everyone has to be a scholar. However, ISKCON needs to establish more and more a powerful scholarly wing that will establish the Vaishnavas, Gaudiya Vaishnavas, as the natural teachers of society, because one of the most important forms of evidence, even in Western logic, is hearing from authority. And so you have to be accepted by society as an authority, and then people listen. So there are different ways, different times and places in history that one establishes oneself as an authority. It used to be that you could converse in Latin, at least in Europe, and you knew the Old and New Testaments very well. You passed certain curriculum in the scholastic universities of the late Middle Ages and so on. Nowadays, there are certain ways by which people establish themselves as learned authorities. We need to do that so that from the platform of being learned authorities, scholars in society, we can teach Krishna consciousness, which is the most important subject matter. That's why the BI is so important. And of course, as it was shown, there are so many different affiliates and so many programs. So all of these programs together, as they grow, as they improve their own understanding and presentation, establishing Prabhupada's followers, at least the relevant ones, as important scholars. This is the way historically that religions establish themselves as authoritative, and then people start to take their theology seriously. This is what Lord Chaitanya did. It's what the Jesuits did on the Christian side, Dominicans. It's just the way history works. So as they say, don't try to reinvent the wheel. There are just certain standard ways throughout history that spiritual movements or religious movements establish themselves. One way, which is not available to us, is that you kill everyone that doesn't accept you. That worked, it seemed to work, at least in terms of recruiting numbers. It seemed to work well for Christians and Muslims especially. But of course, it also involved a lot of evil barbarism, namely murdering innocent people. So that's not really an option for us for moral reasons and just for various reasons. We're not going to do that. So, but the option that we do have, and the best option we have, is becoming society's teachers. And that's what the BI and all the affiliates and allies, that's what it's all about. So thank you very much. I'd like to again thank Kumud Van for his extraordinary ability to get a lot of important people to participate and to do that in a very short time. Very impressive. Also Brahmatirtha Prabhu, the director of the BI, who sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes in front of the scenes, is doing so much. That's him there. Still youthful. So,
right, thank you very much,
Hare Krishna.
Swami, and to all the panelists. There have been a couple of questions that have been repeatedly asked throughout this summer school, and maybe Bob Cohen, you could quickly answer those, and we'll take this to a close. So one of the questions is, with the recordings, where do we find for this summer school, and when will they be posted?
We will, to all of those who are registered and on the list, we will send that out. It will also be posted on the
We aren't able to hear you for
We
some
lost you,
reason.
BT.
Yeah, okay, it's back now. We'll also be on the BI website, which we'll put in the chat right now. I'm not sure when it'll be posted. The answer is very soon. Okay,
And the second question was, if we want to get closely involved with the BI, are there any spots available, and what is the best means?
well, the best means would be to either write to me, and I'll steer somebody in the right direction, or they could write to you, and I'm putting both emails in the chat. Let me see, I'll send it to everyone. I'm putting it in the chat right now, along with our website. Okay, it's there.
All right, thank you very much. And yeah, it's been a fantastic summer school, at least for me. So I thank again the panelists for today, Bob Cohen, H.D. Goswami, and Akhandadi. Thank you very much for, really your immense contributions throughout the summer school. I also want to thank the persons who work behind the scenes, especially Arya and Leela, and perhaps a few others who I don't even know about. So thank you very much for making all the technical things happen and working behind the scenes to make this event a grand success. And of course, thanking all the participants who have been very patient and really clung to this either live YouTube stream or this webinar on Zoom for the 4 days of the summer school. Next year, we hope to have a better, bigger, and a much more detailed summer school. So please stay tuned for that. If any of the participants here are especially maybe students or early career professors of science and philosophy or doctors of medicine, and also, I mean, Sanskrit experts, please do connect, and we will be happy to work with you actually on various interesting projects. So thank you very much for joining, and stay tuned for the next big event, which will be next year's summer school. Please take care.
Thank you very much, Kamadvan, Rajesh.
Have a great day, everyone. Yeah.
Congratulations to you and all the team. And thanks again to all the participants. See you next year, or sooner if possible.
Thank you.